Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is Crystal Palace versus Manchester United preview and your latest Manchester United news. I hope you're all doing very, very well. You know what, it's nice to be on the road. I've been on the road today, doing a bit with Ben Foster, did the Fabrizio Romano show. But it's nice to be back in familiar surroundings. And I wouldn't like to explain or describe any of you as a nice comfy pair of slippers, but you are a nice comfy pair of slippers. And I do like a comfy pair of slippers, so it's nice to be back. Just chilling with you lot, talking about Manchester United. Busy day, lots of content on the channel. I hope you've enjoyed it. Maybe we'll touch on some of those bits. But I want to talk about the Crystal Palace game first. Should Ten Hag be rotating players? Both Fred and Casemiro, one yellow card away from being suspended for the Arsenal game. Also, bit of transfer news really around Scott McTominay, open to a move to Newcastle. Would you do that deal? Maybe we'll do a poll on that in a minute. And of course, I want to talk a bit about Jadon Sancho as well. What's going on with Jadon Sancho? Update from somebody very, very close to the club actually about Jadon Sancho. It's nothing to be worried about, just where we are with Sancho. Obviously not going to be playing against Crystal Palace, not actually back training with the first team yet, but we can talk about that in a little bit more depth. A lot of people saying sell Scott McTominay. I want to talk about Crystal Palace, but let's just hit this McTominay story then. Let's just do it straight away. So would you let McTominay go in January is going to be the poll. Would you sell Scott in January? Let's have a look at how the chat feels about that. Welcome to the members club, by the way. Mark, thank you very much for joining. Mark Latebridge, good name. Thanks for joining. We'll have another members video for you this week. Make sure you check out the Veghorst one. Really enjoyed that. So it's actually coming from the Telegraph that Newcastle have inquired about Scott McTominay. Manchester United are reluctant to let him go, but he's worried about his first team opportunities and would be open to a move. I can only applaud McTominay about that. You know what? I've always said about McTominay, he's a decent player to have as part of the squad, but he's not a starter. I feel that this season he's taken a step backwards. You know, like Delo and Rashford and a few other players have really took a step forward under Ten Hag. I feel that McTominay did take a half step forward. And then since the World Cup, he's sort of taken 2 steps back. And it doesn't make sense because I know what he's like. You know, he's very dedicated. He's very hardworking. He's very popular in the squad. Didn't go to the World Cup. Was captain in the team in the games in Spain. And has just been dreadful for a long time. And that's why he's not getting any game time. You know, that's the honest answer from the training ground. Is he's not getting game time because he's not playing very well. And you know, he's down the pecking order at the moment. I mean, Van der Beek was getting more game time than him. So you can understand it, and I respect McTominay if he does want to move to Newcastle. I understand it because he'd go and play for Newcastle, and you know, Longstaff plays for them. He would get in that midfield, and I actually think it would probably be the right move for him. You know, I don't see him ever being a first team player for Manchester United at that level, or Arsenal, or Chelsea, or Liverpool, or Manchester City. So I think he always is going to be a bench player. And if he's figured that out and he wants to go and play first team football at 26, I think it's a very, very, very good idea. But sell Scott now and buy Tielemans done, says Sim. That would be my condition. If you let McTominay go now, you've got to have a replacement lined up. And if McTominay goes for 30 million quid, would Ten Hag get the 30 million quid? Howdy Mark, all the way from Texas. Great job, says Rene. Thank you very much. Would you sell McTominay and use the funds to sign Milinkovic-Savic on loan to buy? Apparently he's available for 9 million, says Caldo. Jan, welcome to the Members Club. I think this is the problem. I am absolutely certain that United will not let McTominay go in January. And not because I spoke to someone this afternoon, but because it's just not going to happen. And I find myself understanding it because I've got total respect for McTominay if he wants to go, and I think he's totally right. Not going to be a first team player for United. It's very similar to Maguire and Lindelof. The only way you're playing is if there's an injury crisis. And if we get new owners in, we're going to buy better players in your position. So the end is nigh, and I respect the fact that he wants to go and play first team football. I remember Nicky Butt doing this in his late 20s. Phil Neville did it. I fully respect it, and he should be pushing for a move. But I think it's going to have to wait till the summer because to do that now, who comes in? Now, if there's a viable option, if Tielemans can be got for 15 million, you sell McTominay now. Of course you do. If Milinkovic-Savic could be bought in on a loan to buy, you do it now. But I don't think United have the people in place to do that. I think even if Ten Hag said, I don't really want McTominay to go till the summer, but there's a good offer there, and there's a player here I like that will help us between now and the end of the season and be a future player, go and do the deal. I think he'd just get a vacant look from his director of football and his recruitment team going, you want us to sell a player and buy a player in 2 weeks. Have you heard this, Pratt? You know, they wouldn't be able to do it. So nothing's going to happen with it. Nothing's going to happen with it. But I get it. Like 70% of you are saying you would sell him, 31% are saying you wouldn't. I get it. I do get it. But I don't see how it could happen. And to be honest, I think Newcastle inquired about McTominay before January, or certainly at the start of January, and United said no. So I think it would be a good deal for everybody, but it's going to be at the wrong time for Manchester United because, and I don't think United would be worried about strengthening a rival. I don't think they'd be thinking, oh, if we give McTominay to Newcastle, they might get top four and we might not. I don't think that's I mean, it could logically be one. It's a bit like, like not letting Dean Henderson play in the Carabao Cup semi-final. I personally would let him play. I don't think he's going to make any difference in that game, to be honest with you. But United aren't going to take the risk. So he's not going to play. And maybe United aren't going to take the risk with Newcastle in January and they're just going to say no. But it's not going to happen. I respect McTominay if it's true. I think he's absolutely 100% right to be pushing for a move. But it's probably the same as Maguire or Lindelof or Wan-Bissaka. Logically, United aren't that club that can get rid of a player in January and replace them in 2 weeks. They're going to have to wait until the summer. And that's when this deal's going to have to happen. So for now, I would love to replace McTominay with a Tielemans or a Milinkovic-Savic. I think it would massively strengthen us, but I can't see it happening. So I'm not going to really... And I think also Ten Hag might be being told, well, we can let him go, but you won't get a replacement, in which case you wouldn't let him go anyway. Howdy, Mark. All the way I've done that one from Rene. Cass and Fred, both on a yellow, need them for Sunday, says Daniel Kirk. Going to talk about that now. We need to allow McTominay a chance to shine. He can't get it at United and will always be a backseater. It's time to sell, says I'm legendary. And to Newcastle, one of our top four competitors, only if we can get a better midfielder in to replace him, says Leo. And welcome to the Members Club, David. Thank you for everybody who joins and supports the channel, by the way. So yeah, this McTominay story is interesting, but ultimately I don't think anything will happen with it. But if this was the summer... 100% yes, and I think everyone would agree with me. It's the right time for it to happen in the summer. I think now it's just not going to happen, to be honest with you. Anyway, let's maybe we can come back to that. Let's talk about Crystal Palace. Manchester United playing Crystal Palace at 8 o'clock on Wednesday night. How are we looking for this game? How are we going to approach this game? We'll talk about the team news in a minute, but Daniel was right, and I mentioned it right at the top of the show. Fred and Casemiro both have yellow cards, are one yellow card away from a suspension, which would obviously be the Arsenal game on Sunday. Thank you for the super chat, Luke. So does Ten Hag make changes for a game like this? Does Ten Hag make changes in other areas? He has got Victor Lindelof, he has got Scott McTominay, he has got Harry Maguire, he has got Anthony Elanga. He's got options that he could use in a game like this. Nevin, thank you very much for your chat. Or does he stick with the same team that beat Man City and stick with a winning team? Interesting questions. We'll delve into those. But look, interestingly as well about Crystal Palace, I don't know whether anyone's realised this, and to be honest, I'll put my hands up. I didn't realise it until about an hour ago. Because of the amount of games we've got in so many different tournaments, actually, we're playing Crystal Palace twice in our next 3 Premier League games. And I think everybody is doing this. No, they're not, because obviously we're catching up. So, yeah, we play Crystal Palace on Wednesday, we play Arsenal, and then in 2 weeks we play Crystal Palace again. So our next 3 Premier League games, 2 of them against Crystal Palace. So Arsenal's a massive game sandwiched in between, but actually, in relation to our top 4 hopes or title hopes, Crystal Palace is going to be a pivotal thing. 2 games against them in 3 Premier League games, 6 points will be needed because who knows what we're going to get against Arsenal. So Crystal Palace are an interesting opposition. Martinez can easily play CDM. He did it at Ajax, says Lang. Thank you very much. Good statement. So yeah, Crystal Palace. What are Crystal Palace all about? Well, they're sort of a mid-table team that's in a bit of trouble. They're sort of drifting from mid-table and could be in the relegation battle very, very quickly if they're not careful. I like Crystal Palace. I look at that team and I think Elise, Eze, Zaha, Decore. I like the left back Mitchell. I like the centre back Anderson. Guehi's a good centre-back. They're a better team than their recent performances, and that makes them a little bit dangerous to me. I know they only lost 1-0 to Chelsea, but I think they're a bit like Leicester. Before the World Cup, they were doing okay. After the World Cup, they've just fell asleep. And they didn't have many players at the World Cup. So it's interesting, isn't it? Like, I feel like teams that had a lot of players that went to the World Cup, like United, we're really fresh and pumped up because I think we've took the momentum from the World Cup. I think if you didn't have many players in the World Cup, you're a little bit like you're starting the season again. And that's why I'm going to look at Crystal Palace's last 4 Premier League games since the return from the World Cup. And they've lost 3 out of 4. The only game they won, I think, was Bournemouth 2-0. And that's the only game they've scored in their last 4 Premier League games. They've conceded 8 goals in their last 4 Premier League games, and they've scored 2. So they're averaging 0.5 goals per game scored and 2 conceded. So you can see what their problem is. They're not scoring goals, and they are conceding a lot. So they're a good team to play, but I think they're better than their form. And I think they were better against against Chelsea at the weekend than they have been in previous games. So I just think the World Cup for Palace has just left them a little bit lacking sharpness, and that sharpness is starting to come back. They're a dangerous team. I don't know why. I just think this is going to be a difficult game for Manchester United. I was looking at Crystal Palace's home record. They've won 4, drawn 1, lost 4. So they don't draw many at home. That's one thing. So I think this will be one or the other, either way. Our record away is 5 wins, 1 draw and 3 losses. So we don't draw much away. So neither Palace or Manchester United draw many games at home for Palace or away for Manchester United. We've scored 15 goals and conceded 6 away from home. That can't be right. That can't be right. We can't have only conceded 6 at home, away from home. Is that right? We got smacked up by City by that. No, that's not right. That's not right. Take away. Don't worry about the goal difference. But the other thing is right. But look, there was something else I'd written down that I really wanted to talk about. 18-4 conceded. Yeah, we're playing them twice in 3 games. Yeah, we got beat. Yeah, we've conceded way more than that. We've conceded way more than that. But they've scored 10 at home and conceded 15. So look, we know Man United's. Our stats are a bit distorted anyway. This is why stats can be misleading because I think, actually somebody was talking about David De Gea kicking long against Man City, and I said that was Ten Hag telling him to do that. We didn't want to play out from the back. And someone replied to me very, very interestingly and said, David De Gea kicked the ball long more against Man City than he has in his last 4 games combined, which is very obvious, isn't it? So when you're looking at Man United's amount of goals we've conceded away from home, Brentford and Man City massively distort it, don't they? Because we conceded, 10 goals in those 2 games? So it's hard, but look, I think this is a game that Manchester United have to win. Not because we're in a title race, but because we need to win in a top 4 race. And I want to go to the team on my left here. So this is a predicted lineup. It's very, 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 very difficult to predict a Ten Hag team because he is the boss, he is the Don, he is the one who is getting it all right, and he might have an idea that for Palace, he wants to play Maguire. He might want to play Lindelof. He might want to play McTominay. So he might have that penciled in his mind because he's capable of doing something like that. Now, David says, if Martial plays, we're dead. Now, I'm going to take opinion out of this. Sign Edson Alvarez if you let Scott go, says Jay. And Mark, did you notice we play Arsenal on the 22nd, then Forest on the 24th? A day rest is criminal. We don't, Kevin. We play Arsenal on the Sunday and we play Forest on the Wednesday. Mark, I've been wanting to say this for so long. Why does Zayn Miassi run his mouth so much here? Showing himself on our channel shows weakness and envy. I would never lower myself to their channel, says James. Yeah, well, I think he inhabits a few channels, to be honest with you, Zayn. But he's been here for a long time. He's an acquired taste, but I do like Zayn. And not because he does super chats. I think he is quite a funny commenter at times. And he was Arteta out, so we've always got that on him. But yeah, going back to what I was talking about there, it says we've beat Palace already in the bottom right, Mark, says Joe Clark. Does it? Don't know what that's all about. I'm being joked by the admin here. The admin's getting sacked. I didn't write that. I can see him resting Varane for Maguire, Casemiro for McTominay and Shaw for Malacia. He has to rotate if we stand any chance against Arsenal, says Sean. Yeah, well, I want to talk about that. But the first thing I want to talk about is David was talking there about playing, if Martial plays, we're dead. Now, you know my opinion on Martial. And... you know, it's well known, but I feel that right, I'm just going to, it's getting on my nerves, that thing in the bottom right hand corner, so I'm just going to change it. There we go, get rid of that. Yeah, there we go. That's more relevant, isn't it? I want to just quote Eric Ten Hag, really. Anybody who has a pop at Martial and says they back Ten Hag, I hope this makes you think. So, and I completely agree with this, and I've been saying this for weeks. Ten Hag said about Anthony Martial, we really miss him when he doesn't play because he defends really well from the front with his press, and he's integral to the way that we want to play. And when he came off at half time against Manchester City, we really felt that for the first 20 minutes and couldn't adjust. He said about his injury, he'd had an injury all week, but he was desperate to play in the game. But at half time, it was very clear he couldn't put in the work he'd put in the first half, so he had to come off. So whatever your thoughts are about players that you don't like in that 11, and everyone's got a right to do that, Eric Ten Hag values what Anthony Martial brings to that team. And I've got to say I agree with it, because I see it. I watched the game when the ball is somewhere else. And Martial... You look at how organised we were against Man City. You can't be organised like we were against Man City if one player is shit. Like, the whole team has to be organised to stop Man City. You've got Luke Shaw and Varane moving the defensive line like a yo-yo, 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards, confusing Man City, making them think, can we hit it long? No, we can't. Should we hit the fullbacks? No, we can't. You've then got the midfield, you've got Casemiro and Fred picking up their midfielders. You've got, and then you've got the front four who are really well organised, closing the passing lanes as well. So I think Martial's actually a big miss for Manchester United, and I agree with Eric Ten Hag, but I don't think he will be involved. This game is perfect for Scott to prove Eric Ten Hag he can come in for Casemiro as the OJ. If the game was for rotation, this is the time to step up. What do you think of Elanga possibly going to Dortmund as well? Will he? I think it'd be a brilliant move if he can do it. I don't know what Dortmund see in him, but I think the Championship's the place for him. But the fact that Everton and Dortmund are looking at him can only be good for the lad. How would you feel about Kante for a free in the summer? He's too injury prone, Charlie, I think, for me. Love the show, Mark. Thanks for all the content. At what point do you feel we enter a title race, says Dan? Win the next 3. I can answer that very quickly. Win the next 3, I'll put us in a title race. Simple as that. But Martial will not be playing against Crystal Palace. I'm absolutely convinced about it. Martial's not the sort of player that when he's got a problem, runs it off. And we saw that on Saturday. He was desperate to play. He'd had 1 day training. He can only play 45 minutes. Whatever you think about Martial, I'm talking about his physical problems. He can't run an injury off. If he gets injured, it's going to be a long recovery. I actually don't think he'll be fit for Arsenal. I think Martial will probably be out for a couple of weeks now at least. I hope not, but I don't expect him to be involved. And that's why he's not in my predicted lineup. So De Gea will play in goal. Dalot won't be back, so Wan-Bissaka will play at right back. I think there will be changes at centre-back. I disagree with Sean. This is a difficult game against the Crystal Palace side, which I think is a bit of a wounded animal, a bit of a wounded eagle. And I think they might swoop in and cause us problems, and I think we'd be foolish not to go strong. I said this in the watch-along at the weekend. Everybody's obsessed about Arsenal. Should we make changes? Should we rest Casemiro so he can play against Arsenal? What's the better chance of 3 points? Crystal Palace. Get the points against Palace and Arsenal takes care of itself. If you make weakened changes against Palace and you draw, and then you put your strong team against Arsenal and you draw, you've taken 2 points from 6. If you put your weakened team against Palace and you lose, and then you put your strong team against Arsenal and you lose, you've taken no points from 6. Play your strong team against Crystal Palace, get 3 points in the bag, and then see what happens against Arsenal. And I know everyone wants to make it about Arsenal this week, but 3 points against Palace will make any result against Arsenal a good result. even if we lose, because if we lose to Arsenal, we're not in a title race, but we've got 3 points from Palace for a top 4 race. So I think you've got to go strong against Crystal Palace. We are not in a title race, but United need to win as many games as possible to solidify top 4 before bad results come. I agree, Stephen. Would you sell McTominay for 35 million and take Tielemans for 15? Yes, if we could do it in 2 weeks, I would, Dej. I'm still happy from Saturday, says Mikael Roach, and you should be. And Charlie Mack says, I hope Ten Hag was in the boardroom this morning demanding transfers. He will never have a better time as he is negotiating from a position of power. I hope so as well, Charlie. So, in that theme of not wanting to make major changes, Varane has to start. But I would bring Martinez in. And people say, well, you want to go strong. We need Martinez integrated back into this team. So against Crystal Palace, I would play Martinez and I'd shift Luke Shaw to left back. I'd just go with that. I would just do that. He might not. He might keep Luke Shaw at left back and play Malacia and keep Martinez on the bench. But I would bring Martinez back in for this game. And I wouldn't be playing Maguire, but he might do. I would certainly start Casemiro. I think without Casemiro, we're capable of losing to anybody. With Casemiro, I think we're capable of not losing to most teams. So I know he's on a yellow card, but the same theory applies. If Casemiro gets booked in this game, he misses the Arsenal game. But if Casemiro doesn't play in this game to protect him for the Arsenal game, we could lose both. So beat Palace is what I'm saying. And if you put McTominay at CDM against Palace at Selhurst Park, when he's not played for a while, I think you're inviting danger. I really do. So I would play Casemiro. And, if he picks a yellow card up, he picks a yellow card up. But, he's also a very experienced professional footballer. I think he can avoid a yellow card. I think he's capable of doing that. This game is far more important than Arsenal. Win this and we have a 9-point gap to Spurs, says Lars. And this, I agree. I think it's a great point as well. I would rest Fred, though. Now, the reason I'd rest Fred is because he's on a yellow card as well. And you don't want Fred and Casemiro booked and both of them out. So I would rest Fred. And it's not really resting Fred because our best midfield 3 is probably Casemiro, Eriksen and Bruno anyway. So I wouldn't pick Fred and Casemiro because that would be stupid if they both get booked. But I would pick Casemiro. I'd put Fred on the bench. Rashford down the middle for me. Anthony off the right. Garnacho off the left. Weghorst only just arrived, and put him on the bench. You can always change it at half time. I think Garnacho. Rahul has just said, would you start Weghorst? Well, I wouldn't because I think Garnacho deserves the start. Every time he plays for United, something happens. I don't think Weghorst needs the pressure of being thrown in. I think he'd like the pressure, but I don't think we need to do that. I think Rashford through the middle is fine. And Anthony off the right, I think he needs a bit of game time. So that's how I would line up. Now, I'm talking about Sancho in a minute, but I would be very surprised if I got that right. Because I think Ten Hag is just so, and I love it, it's so difficult to predict what Ten Hag is going to do. So I'll be very, very surprised if I end up getting that right. But that is what I would do. I would play Casemiro, but I wouldn't play Fred. I wouldn't run the risk of both of them getting a yellow card and missing Arsenal. I would go with a strong team because I think you've got to respect this league. This league is difficult. It's a difficult league. And we're away from home. And I know we beat Man City, but let's be honest, it could have gone the other way. I don't think it deserved to go the other way, but it wasn't a 4-0 win. It could have gone the other way. And before that, there's been periods in Fulham, Wolves, where it's been quite tight. And they were both away games at Craven Cottage and the Molineux. So I think we've got to respect Palace because you should respect teams anyway, even if you're favourites to beat them. And I wouldn't be going too weak. I wouldn't be giving Palace any, try and beat them in the tunnel. Beat them in the tunnel when they see Varane and Casemiro and Marcus Rashford coming out. And you can make changes in the second half, but get the game won. Scott goes, I'll donate 25 memberships as Josiah and 2 tickets for Mark to give away to the next one. I really hope this happens. And Mark, would you rest Varane and play Lindelof and Martinez at centre-back, says Mikael Roach? No, I wouldn't. And Fian, welcome to the Members Club. I know what people are getting at, and people will be quite rightly saying, Goldbridge, you're a hypocrite because you say that we do need to rotate, but then you're not rotating. But I don't think we need to rotate this week. I think Man City, Crystal Palace and Arsenal are massive games in our Premier League season. And I agree with what Ross said, or was it Stephen said, that we need to get the points while we can. Because in a month's time, we might be in a situation where Rashford and Casemiro aren't even fit. So while we're strong, while the sun's shining, make hay. And playing on Saturday and playing on Wednesday and playing on Sunday is fine. Any professional footballer can do that. That's not a hectic schedule to play Saturday lunchtime, Wednesday night, Sunday afternoon. They'll be fine with 3 games in 8 days. After that, you've got Forest in the semi-final. And then you've got Reading in the FA Cup. And then you've got Forest in the semi-final. That's when you go, maybe I'll take Fred out. Or maybe I'll put Fred in. Maybe I'll take Casemiro out. Maybe I'll put McTominay in. Maybe I'll play Maguire and Lindelof in one of those semi-final legs and see how it goes, because we've always got the second leg. Certainly play them against Reading at home. We've got the rest coming up. I wouldn't be resting in these games. They're too important. Hi Mark, can you say happy birthday to Karen Robson, says M16. There you go, happy birthday. Josiah's just gifted 5 memberships. Don't get too excited. He is a legend of the chat for doing that, but he said 25 if McTominay goes, so McTominay's not gone. And welcome to the Members Club, Charlie. Appreciate that. So what are your thoughts on that team? What are your thoughts about the teams? Big love from Portland. Yeah, I just want to know what people think. Would you go strong against Crystal Palace, or would you actually make changes? Just for a minute. 66% of you would let McTominay go in January. 34% would say no. Interesting. Weghorst should start, says Steen. He might start. Weghorst might start. I'm not bothered if he does. It'd be quite exciting. I'm just saying I think that I would lean towards not starting him and bringing him on as a sub. But he might start him. If Casemiro gets a yellow against Palace, he misses Arsenal game. Anthony Jury. Slow, what do we say in the chat? Slow sports news. Hello there. Hello, Anthony. Manchester United, you say. Casemiro is going to miss Arsenal if he gets a yellow card. That's slow sports news there. That is slow sports news. We've only spoken about it for the last 10 minutes. I'm just practicing, Mark. Just practicing, says Josiah. Thank you very much. Why let him go in January? We'll leave it short for the season, says Hazard. Right, let me talk about Sancho. A lot of people asking about it. What do you think of Arsenal getting Declan Rice, says Hussein? Well, they're not getting Declan Rice. They're interested in Declan Rice, and I think Man United might be interested in Declan Rice, but it's not going to happen in January. Let's go back to what I was going to talk about anyway. Jadon Sancho. So the latest from the club on Jadon Sancho is he's back. He's back at Carrington. He's back mixing with the team, but he's still on an individual fitness program. He's not training with the first team as of today. And obviously the team was back training today. They had a day off yesterday. Weghorst trained, but obviously the players who played against City had a day off yesterday. We need the points, so let's go strong, says Tumbleweed. So the latest on Jadon Sancho is that he's obviously getting closer and closer to a comeback, but he's not back yet. So anybody who starts saying, will Sancho start? No, he won't. Will Sancho be involved? No, he won't. And I would probably say with probably quite strong conviction that he will not be involved in the Arsenal game as well. That might be a little bit of a stretch because that's on Sunday. You never know. He could train with the first team tomorrow, then Friday and get in the matchday squad, but it's highly unlikely. Remember, with Sancho, the word is patience. Patience. And I know it's hard to be patient because you want him back involved. I want him back involved. Josiah, thank you very much for being a member of the club, the United Stand Members Club. But you know what? He has not trained with the Manchester United first team since mid-October. Forget your Christmas decorations. You hadn't even watched the Halloween edition of The Simpsons when he last trained. Like, it's amazing to get your head around that. He hasn't trained with the first team squad for 3 months. It's not going to be like that. And if he still hasn't trained with the first team squad, it's not about, you know, he comes in and Eric Ten Hag got to introduce him to everybody. The relationships are fine. It's more about the chemistry. It's more about when it's like signing a new player in their first training session. They might be absolutely fine from the off. You put them straight into the team, but they might not. And that's why it's hard to gauge. And that's why United won't put, quite rightly, any limit on it, because you can't put pressure on a player that has quite clearly not been playing football because of pressure, whether that's mental pressure or, you know, peer pressure from the media or whatever. I don't know, but you can't put pressure on him. because we've got to handle this delicately, because the worst scenario is comes back into the team, has a bad game, you know, and reacts badly or something like that, and then he's off again for a couple of months. So there are no. I know from Man United side they're very keen to say there is no deadline, there is no pressure, and there's no real expectation as to when he'll be back and what that will look like. The plan from everybody is to get Jadon Sancho back playing for Manchester United, performing the way that everyone wants him to. But it's not helpful when people say, well, we need him for Palace, we need him for Arsenal, we need him back for the Forest game, because he might not be. I remember saying in January, I don't think he'll play any time before the Manchester derby, and it could go longer than that. Of course, it looks like it will. Would you let Sancho go if he fails to make an impression during the rest of the season, says Min? Well, we're not at that point, really, are we? We're not at that point. But what I would say, and I don't like to not answer questions, even though this is very hypothetical, if it gets to the summer and you have a chat with Jadon and he goes, look, I'm not happy, I'm not settled, I don't feel this is right for me, and United feel the same, then you would look for a move, wouldn't you? But I don't think that is on the agenda of anybody. It's not on the agenda of the fans. I don't think it's on the agenda of Jadon Sancho, and it won't be on the agenda of Ten Hag or Manchester United. They will want to make this work, and you know, they might not be able to, but I think there's a willingness and a desire and a determination from everybody to do that. But what we have to do is just say, well, we can't put him in the matchday squad for Palace. We can't predict he's going to play against Arsenal. We can't predict he'll be back for the Carabao Cup semi-finals. We've just got to let it run its course. And the situation at the moment is he's not training with the first team at the moment. He's still on an individual fitness plan, but it's Monday. And, you know, maybe after the Palace game, maybe he will be training with the first team. Maybe this week will be the team that happens again. And then when it does happen and we get the pictures of that, it'll be a good day. And then from that point, you can start to go, well, really then it's just about match sharpness and when Ten Hag feels he's ready for the bench. And then you take it from there. When's Delo back, says Malps? I don't know, and you don't get very good updates from United under Ten Hag on injuries. You don't. The last injury, remember the last injury from Delo? We saw him get injured in the World Cup. We never got an update until we saw him training, and it ultimately ended up being 2 or 3 weeks. But I don't even know what the thing is with Delo. Obviously, I watched the same game as you. I saw him go off. It was precautionary, but I can't really figure out what it was. I don't know whether it was a recurrence of his hamstring or, you know, it was an ankle. I don't know. With Sancho, he needs to be in the right headspace and fix again. Not rushing him because it could set him back months again, says Tumbleweed. Exactly. Please do smash the like on the video, by the way, if you're watching. So yeah, I don't know with Delo. We're very fortunate with Wan-Bissaka. Really good video with Fabrizio Romano this afternoon. Do check it out if you've not seen it. Fantastic video with Ben Foster as well. But with Fabrizio, he still says that the Wan-Bissaka deal could still be something that happens. I don't think it will be. And I think the reason Fabrizio says that is because it was the deal that United were looking to do. So much so that clubs are standing by to try and do a deal for Wan-Bissaka. But I don't think United will do it, because it's like, it's a load of work when it might not be the right thing to do. Yeah, there's clubs that want Wan-Bissaka on loan. There are. And United could bring a right back in on loan. But do they need to do it right now? I don't think they need to do it. So I don't think it will happen. Ooh, that's a big yawn from nowhere. Welcome to the club. PA20 says, opinions on Palhinha. Good player. I liked him at Sporting. Done a good job at Fulham. He'd be a good player to bring in, wouldn't he? As a, you know, come on loan to us for 5 months, but we'll never do it. Were you more confident for City than versus Arsenal, says Ronan. And the Waffle House has found its new host, says the racing guy. You know what? I don't want to talk about Arsenal. And I'm being quite stubborn about this. I don't want to talk about the Arsenal game because we've got Crystal Palace next. And I'll be over the moon if we beat Crystal Palace. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. In fact, my prediction is that we'll win 2-1. I hope in the first half an hour we score 3 goals and then we can just make some subs and get Casemiro off. I hope we cruise through Palace. And we could. But I also feel that Palace are better than their results. I think they're a good side. And at Selhurst Park, it can be difficult. I mean, I always remember that Matic goal. So I'm focused on Crystal Palace. I'm looking forward to Crystal Palace on Wednesday night. I think it's difficult. But in the interest of fairness, I'll answer that question. Was I more worried about City at home or Arsenal away? I'm more worried about Arsenal away. And that might be because it's the next game and we've beat City. But I had total faith in the Old Trafford crowd to do what it did. And it did it. It was electric. The atmosphere was amazing. And it didn't do it justice on TV. You know, I've spoken to Adam. He was at the game. He said that's the best. And obviously he goes to all of them. He says that's the best atmosphere we've had at Old Trafford in probably 10 years. It's unbelievable. So, look, we were very organised against Man City. They had 71% possession at Old Trafford. I mean, let's not forget that. This was not a vintage Ten Hag Man United performance. And I don't think we're at that level yet anyway. But we deserve to win. 71% possession doesn't mean you don't deserve to win. We had 70% possession against Brentford and we lost 4-0. Liverpool had 73% possession against Brentford and they lost. So possession doesn't win you the game if it's not good possession. And Man City didn't have many chances. So we deserved to win that game. But I think we won it because we could afford to be organised and patient and we had the crowd on our side and it was a difficult day for Manchester City. When we go to Arsenal on Sunday, we can play the same way and we probably will. But we won't have the crowd. They'll have the crowd. And it's different. It's different. It's different being organised in front of your own crowd than it is in an away game. And I actually think Arsenal are better than Man City as well. So Arsenal's a much tougher game on Sunday. It's a difficult game. Arsenal are favourites. They are. I'm more focused on Palace, but Arsenal are favourites. They're favourites. I don't need to talk about score predictions or anything because I don't know what the lineup's going to be. We've got to get Palace out of the way. But they are the favourites, and it will be a difficult game. Delo was overplayed earlier on. He is feeling the effects, says Mikel. Yeah, I agree. If we went all the way in the Cups, the Brentford home, Brighton away, and Chelsea home games would be postponed. It's going to be tough, says Glennie. And I think Casemiro gets benched for Palace. He's on 4 yellow cards and misses Arsenal if he gets another yellow. Don't think Eric Ten Hag would like to risk it, says Sakim. So you think that Eric Ten Hag wouldn't like to risk Casemiro because he might miss the Arsenal game, which we might lose with Casemiro anyway. So he'll risk 3 points against Palace. I don't think Ten Hag's like that. I think he wants to win every game. And I think he will know that not playing Casemiro against Palace gives Palace a massive chance of winning. And I think he'll want the 3 points against Palace. And I am going to sit here and say this right now. If Casemiro plays against Palace and he gets booked and he misses the Arsenal game, I don't want anyone moaning saying he shouldn't have played him, because I think he should play him. But it's up to him. He might not risk him, in which case I'll back my manager. But if he does play him, I think it's the right thing to do, because I don't think Palace is an easy game. And I think 3 points against Palace is essential. I don't think I think even if we play well against Arsenal, 3 points, we've probably got about a 25% chance. If we play well against Palace, I think we've got an 80% chance. So the 3 points out of those two games is more likely against Palace. Get those 3 points. Get those 3 points. Is it just me, or does it seem like we play Palace way more than any other club each year, says Matt? We haven't played them yet. We're playing them twice in 3 games now. Is it just me, or do fans hate Bruno for no reason? He was superb in the City game, and I think the Bruno De Bruyne conversion should ignite again. So I don't think we're at that point. I'm a massive fan of Bruno, but I don't think he's in the Kevin De Bruyne category like he was 2 years ago. But I also think he's a lot better than he was last year. And but look, everybody has, people have an agenda, don't they? It's not our job to tell people what to think about players. It's, I remember growing up and some of the lads at school, like, they just had illogical dislikes for certain players. I remember there was one lad at school who just hated David Ginola, like, just absolutely hated him. And I was like, what a player. And I just didn't like him. I think it was because he did adverts for L'Oreal or something, but just couldn't stand, had an irrational dislike for David Ginola. And it's snowing apparently, says Lee. Probably won't be snowing where I live. Palestri can possibly emulate Garnacho when he needs games, says Sanjay. And in my opinion, we should start using Iqbal in Eriksen's spot as a sub more, says Noah. Well, yeah, I'd like to see it, but he's got to force his way into Ten Hag's plans first. But look, there are players that don't like... You know what? There are still fans who don't like Rashford. They might be quite quiet, but there are people who don't like Rashford. There's people who don't like Bruno. They're probably a little bit more vocal. There's people that don't like De Gea. There actually are people who don't like Varane. I've seen them online as well, and they are United fans. So it's weird. It's really weird. I was talking to Billy on Twitter today about this, and I said, I don't get that. I think there's been plenty of reason to moan over the last 10 years, and I would defend the right of any United fan to moan over the last 10 years, because there has been multiple reasons to absolutely moan about players, about the way the club's run, about managers. There's loads of evidence of that. But it seems like some people just want to moan no matter what, and I don't see a reason to moan at the moment. I just do not. There is nothing wrong with what that team is doing. Nothing. There's nothing wrong with it. And even people who say, well, I want McTominay out or I want Maguire out. Well, Maguire's come in a couple of games where it's helped us rotate. All right, he shouldn't be starting, but he started against Bournemouth and we won, and it didn't matter. And he started in the Cup and we won, and it didn't matter. And what I mean by that is we didn't lose because of him. So he did a job. He's the 4th or 5th choice centre-back at the moment, and he did a job. I don't really care about Maguire. I think Maguire needs to go in the summer for his own career, but I'm not bothered about Maguire like I was last year when it was costing us points with Lindelof and McTominay and Fred. So I think we're in a good place. I don't see the point in January moaning about Bruno when he's not going anywhere in the summer anyway, but he certainly wouldn't be going anywhere in January, and we've got nobody else. I don't get some of the moanings about individual players, because it's almost like we're in the best position we've been in since Sir Alex Ferguson left. I know Mourinho won trophies and I know Van Gaal won trophies, but there's genuine progress in the direction we want to go. And there's just no reason to be moaning about individual players, but people will do it because that's just life, isn't it? But I don't agree with it. I think that now is the time to really be excited and get behind this squad, because they are responding, and they've gone a long way to winning my trust back. I said at the end of last season they were a disgrace, and I don't think I'd ever trust most of them again. The fact that I would sit here and say, they've earned a lot of trust back, and I include players I liked last year who I'd lost trust in, and they've been fantastic, a lot of them, and they deserve the credit. And I don't really see why, when we're having an over-exceeding season, people are trying to individualise issues within that team. We can all see improvement in areas, and I can't argue with people who some people. There's probably some fan out there that thinks we should sell Luke Shaw. It's preposterous, but there probably is. If they, and that's up to them. But we need these players at the moment, and I certainly don't think Bruno is a player that I'd be thinking about not needing. Mark, if Casemiro gets a yellow card against Palace, he will still be able to play against the Arsenal. Look it up, says Muzzy. Well, that is breaking news if that's true. I don't know how that's true, but there you go. Petter, welcome, and thank you very much for the super chat. Enjoy the moment and trust the process, says Just Kevin. Yeah, look, there'll be plenty of time to moan. We're not going to win forever. There will be mistakes. Ten Hag's not perfect. There will be plenty of time for moaning, but it's not true, says Yash. No. I think Casemiro and Fred both had 4 yellow cards, so a yellow card against Crystal Palace will put them out of the Arsenal game. Simple as that. Albin says I'd play Fred instead of Eriksen. The only reason I haven't put Fred in is because if you play Fred and Casemiro and they both get booked, you lose both. I wouldn't risk Fred and Casemiro on the same pitch. I think you've got to go strong, so you've got to pick Casemiro, but I wouldn't put Fred on because, if you lose Fred and Casemiro for the Arsenal game, you've got to play McTominay and Eriksen, and we did that against Man City and they got overrun. So I wouldn't risk losing both Fred and Casemiro, but I think you need Casemiro against Palace. McNeil or Hugo a chance, better than nothing, says Aston. Well, we have got Weghorst now. And how realistic, in your words, Mark, are we to get 2nd or 3rd this season, says Paul? I'd say we're favourites for 3rd. Doesn't mean we'll get it, but I'd say we're favourites for 3rd because we're comfortably top 4, and I'd say United would always be favourites over Newcastle to get 3rd. I think 2nd will be Man City or Arsenal, and I think 1st will be Man City or Arsenal. So I think we've got a good chance of getting 3rd. I'm not going to say we're going to get 3rd, and I'm not going to say we're going to get 4th. I'm still thinking we might not get in the top 4 because that's what I said at the start of the season. I said Man City would win the league at the start of the season, and I'm not going to change that either. But look, we're in a really strong position, and the only thing that's going to stop Man United getting top 4 is the only thing that's going to stop Arsenal winning the league. Squad depth. They've got both Man United and Arsenal have got really good managers and players that are playing for those managers. If they can keep those players fit They're not going to suddenly become Neil Warnock overnight. Arsenal will win the league and we will get top 4 if we keep our players fit, because the managers are spot on. But what are the chances that Arsenal will keep everybody fit, and what are the chances that United will keep everyone fit? Because Arsenal's bench and our bench is a drop off from the first team, and that's when problems could arise. And look at the weekend. Bruno Guimaraes got injured. A few others get injured. It will probably hit us or Arsenal at some point, and when it does, how many points will you drop? That's my only concern. We are so dependent on Casemiro. We need someone as backup, maybe Martinez, says Noel. And I do agree, but City are bottling it at the moment, says Jemmy. Yellow cards reset after 19th game, which is technically the Palace game. So Casemiro and Fred might be able to play and not worry about the cards, says David. And what do you think about Alanga? Do you think he has a future with United, or should we sell him, Mark? Is he a star, says Petter? Well, look, look. The information that's been out there is that that if Casemiro gets booked or Fred gets booked, they would miss the Arsenal game. But for me, it doesn't really matter in the context of this show, because I wouldn't rest him anyway. I'd play him, so it doesn't matter to me. I think you've got to go strong against Crystal Palace, so I would pick Casemiro. So I wouldn't rest him anyway. I would start him. So if that's true, and I don't think it is, but if that was true, obviously it wouldn't matter anyway. But either way, I'd play Casemiro. So I thought Rashford last season was completely abysmal and I lost all faith in him. Now I wouldn't consider swapping him for anyone if he was healthy, says Jack. Well, Jack, I agree. When Marcus Rashford went down on the watch along on Saturday, I think I got out my chair and I was going, no, because that is the sort of injury, like Casemiro, that's where your season crumbles. I wouldn't like to lose De Gea. I wouldn't like to lose Varane. I wouldn't like to lose Luke Shaw. I wouldn't like to lose Bruno. But the two we cannot lose at the moment are Casemiro or Rashford. You lose one of those, I think it's going to be really hard to achieve the things that we could achieve this year. And because we know that, what the owners should be doing is going, if we did lose Rashford, how does the team look? If we did lose Casemiro, how does the team look? Well, if you lose Casemiro, you're playing McTominay at CDM, so get a CDM in. If you lose Rashford, maybe you should be getting another forward in, but whether we'll do that. In May, I predicted United would place in 10th, where Chelsea are now. How times have changed, says Ronan. I'd rather Arsenal winning the league than City any day of the week. I can't stand City, says Farrell. And Grant says it's after the 19th game, meaning the 20th is missed. Well, look, I think a lot of people are getting confused here. I would start Casemiro regardless of the yellow card risk, because I think Palace is a very important game to win. But my reading of it would be, after the 19th game, it resets. But therefore, if you get your 5th yellow card in the 19th game, you miss the 20th game. I think that's what it means. Basically, halfway through the season, it resets. But if you're not halfway through the season till the 90th minute of the 19th game. So if you get booked in the 19th game, you've still picked up 5 yellow cards before the conclusion of the 19th game, so you'll miss the 20th game. That's what it is. But as I say, I'd still play Casemiro anyway. I really do think... And I get it, there's a good buzz around United, and maybe we will sweep Palace aside, but I think they're dangerous. I think they're a dangerous team. I don't think they're as bad as their recent results suggest. And I think at Selhurst Park, they've got... And also, their next 3 games could be 3 losses. They've got us, Newcastle, and then us at Old Trafford. So, and if they did lose those 3 games, it'd be 6 losses in the last 7 games. So... it's a huge game for Palace. They've got to find a result in the 2 games against us or Newcastle. Hopefully Newcastle. That would be a big help. I agree with B. Yakov. Hopefully United are like 2 or 3-0 up at half-time. Then maybe you can think about taking off Casemiro. Yeah, get the game won. He doesn't need to play for 90 minutes. Exactly. If you're on the pitch for 90 minutes, obviously there's more chance of a yellow card. If you play 65 minutes, and let's not forget, if we play a good possession game, which is why I'd play Eriksen, if we have 60% possession against Crystal Palace, then it's not like Casemiro is going to have to be making tackle after tackle after tackle. He can play a little bit more conservative if we are possession based, But I'll go 2-1. And we need to be at it first half on Wednesday, says RJ. I agree. Look, thank you everyone for watching today. It's been a very big content day for the United Stand. Brilliant video with Ben Foster. Watch it. Really, really enjoyed that. You will enjoy that. Brilliant video with Fabrizio. All the latest ingoings, contracts, outgoings, even some summer talk about Osman and Timber. Really enjoyed that. Preview as well. So loads to get involved in, loads to get your teeth in if you've not watched it all. If you have watched it all, you're a legend. Thank you very much. TUS legend. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow on the 10 o'clock show. And we've got press conference reaction at lunchtime from Ten Hag, and then the 8 o'clock show tomorrow night. So busy. And then Wednesday, we've got Crystal Palace. So loads to get involved in. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Thanks to all the new members. Get your comments in below if you're not watching live. And thanks to everyone who is a member. I can see a lot of badges in there. Lee Berman, Hail Europa, Jarry T, Rag, Board, Terp, G-Man, Board 456, Mario G, Pharrell, Liam Parker, Irish King, I Do Some Troll, MKF, DJ John, Matt's Aviation. Thank you everyone for all your support. Really appreciate it. And I mean everyone. Take care, stay safe, and we'll speak on the next one.